And we are also live on Twitter. So that's great. I'm excited to be here with you. How are you doing, Julian?
Too. Thanks for having me.
So welcome to the Digital Leadership Podcast. I'm happy to have you here. We connected a few weeks ago, and we started to have a discussion about research, and I thought that it was a great topic for the people that are listening. So the best will be, can you introduce yourself to the people that don't know you?
Okay, I'm Julian Della Mattia. I'm a researcher specialized in research ops or research operations. And basically, this mix of research and research operations means basically that I focus on, or I specialize in building teams and practices from scratch mostly. I've been the first researcher or one of the early hires most of my career, and also with client work. So whether in-house or with clients, I was early in the game. So I kind of at the beginning, I got to see and got to learn how this is done, how you should build, the columns, the pillars, and then everything on top of that. And then in the end, I always say that at the beginning it was pure luck, it was pure chance. So I ended up in those positions in in the first couple of jobs, it was okay by chance, but then afterwards, it's not chance, it's not coincidence anymore. I started picking these opportunities and these kind of gigs, also the type of client and so on. So I focus heavily on building research practices from scratch. As a first
and you're also a speaker, right? You speak to conferences.
Yeah, I always shy away a little bit from this term of creator, but I do create some content, or I'm trying to put some content out there. I have my blog now. I'm starting with the podcast, content on LinkedIn, and yeah, this year I had the chance of doing a couple of conferences in Vienna, Budapest, one in Latin America. So yeah, this is also happening this year too.
That's great. I love that. And so, how did you? So just before we start on research, how did you finish in research? So what did you do before? Like, what is your parkour?
Well, my background is in international business. That's what I studied
Okay.
originally. And I started off as a product manager. So I first I worked in international trade doing imports and export. That's not even on LinkedIn. That's something that's hidden, in the.
Oh, you wanted to hide the fact that you were a product manager?
No. The product manager, no, but this imports and export part.
Okay.
I was working with that. Yeah, that is hidden. That's a previous life. But on LinkedIn, you will find the tech life. So that starts with me as a product manager. So I was a product manager at a startup. It was an e-commerce, a cross of an e-commerce and a crowdsourcing platform. And there, like, my style of product management in the end was very, since the team was small and we didn't have product market fit, I was pretty leaning on also towards the research part of it. It's kind of like not the tech part was one of those parts that I was like, not my favorite ones. And I was heavily involved in talking to customers, finding, who to talk to, understanding the problem space, users, the market better, trying out stuff. So basically, and the kind of things that I was doing back then. This is probably a classic for all product managers out there, but Steve Blank, that kind of thing, get out of the building, talk to customers, very rudimentary type of research. So, but I noticed that, okay, this is something that I really, really like. So at some point I started to, okay, how do I get better at this? How do I improve my skills? How can I talk better? How can I interview better? How can I do all the things? And one thing led to another. And yeah, then I got a gig as that gig in particular was a researcher and facilitator gig because I got in because I knew how to do design sprints. I think that's a different story and another box that we can open maybe later. But yeah, and from there, research still here.
Okay.
Here we are.
Yeah, you said a few stuff that are like I wanna pick on, but I will pick on later. But so then after that, you went into research, like research ops. So for people don't know what is research op, what it is exactly, and also like what kind of company have research ops. So is it more for startups or is it also for big businesses? What is it for?
Well, okay, you have here two questions in one, so I'll address one by one.
Yeah.
First one, research ops. I also didn't know what research ops was. In fact, I was doing research ops without knowing it was called research ops. as many things you do. Okay, I'm doing this. I don't know. This is called X or Y.
Yeah.
So research ops is everything around the research except the research itself, if you want to put it that way. So it's everything, or if you want, the infrastructure that sets research in motion. So if we consider research as, let's say we have a project where we need to interview people, really basic stuff, okay? So interviewing people, then doing the analysis and so on, that would be considered partly the research. But everything around, from how do you find the customers, the right customers to talk to, contacting them, handling their data, and the tools that you need for conducting those interviews, what you do with the output of that research, what tools you use for, let's say, the analysis part, or how do you do it, how does the process look. So everything in that area is research ops. But this is end to end. I mean, if you want, I can pull up a map. You can probably find it online, probably if you Google research ops map or research ops community map. This is a map by the research ops community. I think it's 5-6 years old already. It's really, really great work, and it was done by the world top minds in research ops. You can find all the things research ops can do, can help you out with, but there are like a million. So I just went really broadly on what research ops is. But if you want more detail, you can find it there.
Yeah, I will put it in the comment. I will find afterwards and put it in the comment for people that are looking for it. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that and everything from the research ops community is recommended. It's really amazing what you can find there. And in terms of what kind of companies, that's I will give you a complicated answer to this.
Okay.
Which companies do have research ops now as a position, as a function, and which ones are doing research ops but don't have it, and which ones should have research ops.
Okay.
That's why I say it's complicated. So which one should have research ops? Any companies that's doing research. Because when there's research ops. You cannot separate both. Maybe you don't have your operations or the ops part, let's say, polished, structure. It's not the top level. You don't have maybe oil or something, but you have it there. The fact that you're not acknowledging it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So if you're a startup doing some research and talking to customers to find product market fit, you're conducting research and you have research ops. You just it's not your priority as if you're in that stage, but you could use that. And I want to make an extra point here, because many startups nowadays and many companies are doing now what's called, for some reason now it's called product discovery, but I also consider it like continuous discovery, but we just put both in the we put both in the same bag. Product people will kill me, but it is what it is. Also, so they're doing that. So it would be what I would advise, to get someone involved in terms of helping out with research ops there. So that's why, that in that kind of companies, you can also benefit a lot from research ops. And then you go to the other two groups. Okay, large companies who probably have large research teams, so maybe have a lot of people conducting research. Maybe they're, I don't know, designers, product managers, or whoever. Those companies, if they're big enough, they usually invest. Sometimes it's within design ops, within that family. It's the same with design and research. Sometimes they sit together. So sometimes research ops and design ops sit together too. Sometimes you have the research ops team part, but these companies tend to have, especially if you have many, because you need to orchestrate many things. And then you have these people in between, like mid-sized companies, maybe companies that have, I don't know, from 100 to 300 people, that they have somehow, like the team it's not a startup anymore, and the team is not that large, but maybe you have one researcher or two researchers, and they are actually doing some ops part. And this last group is where I focus the most. I've been coaching and helping teams do this, set up a research practice from scratch, because that's a situation that I faced many times. I joined a company, there were no researchers, so I came in and I started building everything, and that's where research ops starts or comes into play, if you want.
Okay. And so, do you feel that companies right now are putting more importance into research? Are you seeing a difference, or is it still something that you have to prove and say why we should have research ops?
Okay, research or research ops? The answer will will depend on what you want to focus on.
Research ops.
Okay, the thing with research ops is that not many companies are investing in research ops,
Mm-hmm.
and even worse, not many companies are investing in research ops early enough.
Okay.
You get this is kind of a preconception that companies think, okay, this should be something that we need to take care of down the road. No, this is limited to companies that have 20 researchers in house. This is not for us now. I got this many times, like, no, we don't need to think about this. But actually, as I said 2 minutes ago, if you have research, you have research ops.
Okay.
So there's not enough investment in many companies, and well, part of the content that I put out there is to try to create this awareness. I mean, you don't need to invest a lot. It's not that it's in that it doesn't necessarily need to be expensive, or you need to invest a lot, but with investing time, effort, and some resources, you can really make the most out of your research practice with that.
Okay, I
So
understand.
definitely, yeah.
And so since we talk about leadership also, what leadership should know about research ops? Because you say like they think it's maybe, for later, or they think it's for another type of organization. So if I'm a leader in an organization, why should I pay attention to it?
Well, if there's research happening, it's because there is an interest in understanding, understanding the users, the problem space, the market. There is some interest in that. So there's a certain hunger for knowledge, right? Or there's some interest in gathering knowledge. So if you want to gather more knowledge, if you want to connect different sources of knowledge, different types of knowledge, and you want to create a common understanding throughout the organization, research ops can be the enabler of all that, because research ops is also not limited to the research team.
Okay.
It's
What
so that
does
you
it
need
cover?
researcher. You don't necessarily need to have a researcher for them to have research ops. So you can have research ops without researchers, or you can have research ops first and then
Researcher later?
yeah, but also it connects with other teams.
Okay.
It's not just that. For example, if you wanna, let's say you have customer support, you have customer experience, you have sales, you have people talking to customers, you have data teams who are also gathering stuff, you have marketing, you have I don't know, you have a CRO team, a CRO team, and all these people have knowledge. And if you want to connect that knowledge, and you are a research ops person, you are connecting parts outside the research team. You know what I mean? This is what I mean when that exceeds the. If you're building a repository, let's say, and you want to connect all this, and you want to gather information throughout the company, you are also connecting with other teams. So it's also
Yeah,
facing outside the research team. This is what I mean.
I understand. And so I guess in the world of digital, and I'm going to talk about research now, how it is important for you, like for digital research.
So, sorry, what did you? What do
So
you mean? Yeah.
the place of research in digital and in leadership, like where do you feel like people are not understanding the importance of research, for example?
Well, there are many layers to that. So there's this conception also that research is just talking to customers, and that's it. It should be easy. Anybody can do it. First of all, it's not that. Then that we don't need research. That's an all adage. Okay, we know the customer. We've been here for like 10 years already. We know what customers want. We know what they need. We know what we should build. So I mean, there are many angles to this, but there is this belief that research probably, or that research should then confirm or deny their thoughts. Sometimes it's used more to confirm their thoughts and feelings. Okay, I wanna validate my thoughts, and that's a
Yeah, there
pretty
is a bias. There is a
yeah.
bias. Yeah.
So in terms of understanding, or in terms of believing in research, I think research helps make better decisions,
Mm-hmm.
and this should be applied across the company. If we empower learning and we connect the knowledge throughout the company, everybody can make to a certain extent. Of course, not all decisions are crossed by research, or but by users. There are many decisions that maybe something that we need to fix that it's our or falls on our plate. But if you connect all the knowledge, then everybody can make better decisions in their level. So research should be at the core. And also, if we want to speak about user centricity and all these concepts, I think research sits exactly in the center of all that.
And so this is around research, right? That is around, obviously, when we talk in product about customer discovery, the goal is to put the user at the center. Even it's sometimes it's forgotten, as you said, like there is this concept, like this confirmation bias that people just want to validate what they think. Or there is also the other side where it's like you're an expert, so you don't need to validate it because you know so much that you don't need to validate it.
Yeah. And there's also this, just to build on this, there's also this, not disbelief, but this unlimited love for quantitative stuff and disbelief in qualitative stuff. This is also classic in this thing. Okay, see, we have data. We can take a look at the data, but we don't understand why, So then you get all this, you only talk to 10 customers. So, well, okay, this, all these kind of phrases are the classics of, I don't believe in research,
So can you elaborate on the quantitative versus qualitative?
Yeah. There's this love, as I said, this love for quantitative, and everything is if it's quantitative, then it has somehow more
weight.
I was looking for, I was treading careful with the wording here, but it's like, it's like confidence, if you want, or sounds more trustworthy.
Okay.
But actually quantitative can be also like introduced, but this is like the data will give you the results depending on how you measure it, how you compare data, the sample size. There are many things that will also create some noise in there. So quantitative sounds like, okay, it's a number, math. I think it comes from there. Okay, it sounds about right. Whereas, okay, someone said something in a very small sample of users, maybe 10 people said, it's like, well, maybe, especially if you connect to what I said before, it's like, okay, I want to kind of confirm or validate my thoughts, this confirmation bias. If I'm looking everything through that lens and I'm presented with a piece of qualitative evidence that contradicts my prior thoughts, then it's like, okay, it's just someone, this is probably not what we're looking for, this is not. So there is this love for quant and kind of disbelief in qual. I think both are essential to understanding. This is like having different size or different cameras. I think Dr. David Travis, in his book Think Like a Researcher, like a UX researcher, I'm sorry. I think he uses this analogy of a movie. So if you have a film and you have different cameras, I mean, if you have a camera like facing like this and recording at the face all the time, you only see faces and you probably miss part of the action. But if you have one angle like this and then you have an angle from here or an angle from behind, you can have a better understanding of all this. So if you start combining these sources and this type of data, you will have a better understanding of the situation. So both are essential. Combined, they're even better. So that's called triangulation. So if you want to extract something from what I just said, it's like we should believe more and we should have more love for qualitative because it's as equally as important as quantitative.
Okay.
I know researchers know that, but in product managers,
I was about to say, how do you know that? I was about to ask you a question. How do you know that? Because it's true that, as you said, most of a company will not necessarily, and especially at the beginning, put an effort or maybe resources toward research because it's expensive also, and it's kind of I'm whether putting my money on the left or my money on the right, and most of the time it's like we need to build and to sell. The research come after.
That's it.
I thought you were about to, I thought you were about to react, so I was stopping at the same time. So I guess it's how do you know, or do you have any stories of people that didn't put the time in the story, didn't put the time or resources in research, and they failed after that, and maybe they came to see you after, or have you witnessed that?
Yeah, but I'd rather not give any names.
That's
but
okay. You don't have to.
No, joking. Yeah, but there are many cases out there that didn't invest in research, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't necessarily mean you need to do, because there's also another misconception is that, okay, I need to invest a lot of money, it will take long, it doesn't necessarily need to be like that. So if you don't know, or if you don't understand the user, the context, the problem space, the market, if you don't understand all those things, then you're kind of like shooting in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is, we have this lean startup
Yeah.
heritage of like, yeah, let's just build, shoot, see what sticks, and iterate. I
Yeah.
going back to, I quoted Steve Blank. So
That's
that's
good.
2000.
Yeah. Eric Rice just after
Yeah,
is perfect. If we have Peter Thiel at the end, we have a free free
yeah.
ones.
Breaking out to 0 to 1. So yeah, that's 2004, 2000. The, the lean startup from 2012, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
It
have
was
that.
around
So
that.
we just build and we just build, and then, but if we don't know, we're just like shooting, and we're creating a lot of waste,
Mm-hmm.
because we're just shooting and see what sticks.
Yeah.
In that case, we're building and trying out. I know it's not that you do research and magically all your answers will present themselves, and it's like, oh, now I'm inspired, I know what I have to do and it will work. It doesn't work like that. But imagine that is that you have a target, this red and white target. So if you have to aim, well, if you don't have research, you will go like this. If you have research, you will start to close and close and close and close. It will help you get some understanding, reduce the risk of certain decisions, and make better ones.
And so what, because you talk about product management earlier, that it was your early career, and I would say that one role that is really concerned by research is product management and the founders, right? It's the two roles that should be, especially at the beginning, that should have an eye for that. What do you think they don't know, and they should? If you had something to say right now to them and they're listening to that, like what is it? What will be the thing that you will say to them?
They don't know in terms of when they should be conducting research, or what do you mean in general?
Yes, research, and when we should be connecting research, and the importance of it. And yeah.
Well, it depends what they read. If and I go back to Steve Blank, still one of my favorite books ever.
Mm-hmm.
If you read the 4 Steps to Epiphany, or the Startup Owner's Manual, the get out of the building, then we can discuss what does that mean exactly, and what's the quality of the research there. And that's where I changed my hat and I put my researcher hat, and I said, okay, we shouldn't just, it's not simply talking to random customers. It's not just like that. But if you follow that, you probably will start getting some understanding, and this is cyclical. Knowledge will build on knowledge.
Yeah.
So one of the things that many people don't realize, and this is also, now I'm pointing to researchers.
Sorry, who?
Bezos Siriani, he was, he works at Reforge now. He was a researcher at Slack, and
Okay.
Facebook now is Meta. So great, his content is amazing. So if you have the chance to check him out, also really recommend his work. So he says that the first researcher is actually the founder or the founders. They, by trying to understand the problem space, trying to understand the market, trying to understand the users, maybe in a rudimentary way, maybe it's not polished, maybe it's not high quality or like top of the shelf research, but still research starts there at the genesis.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's also important to acknowledge that. So to connect both things, maybe people think, yeah, we don't have a researcher, so we don't. No, actually you are. So if you're trying to find stuff out, you have research. So from the genesis, every startup should have research, unless they're just building and throwing and see what sticks, which in any case could be evaluative research if they test, but I don't want to get into that.
But Steve Blanks was saying that also, especially in the interviews, that it was the founders that should do that. He was saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I want to come back to Steve Blanks, because it's 2 times that you talk about it, about getting out of a building. And I got a question not so long ago, because for me, one of the skill of a digital leader, it's that they need to get out of a building. But I got some question. What do you mean by getting out of a building? So I want to have your version of what is getting out of a building to explain to people.
Okay. First of all, I'm really happy to talk about Steve Blank. I've done
Yeah.
other podcasts on research and so on, and I never get to quote Steve, which is, as I said, sorry, one of my favorite authors and one of my favorite books still.
Easy.
So
Yeah.
I still have that product management side inside. I have a little product manager inside still. So getting out of the building will mean different things depending on the context. If you're a startup team, getting out of the building would mean trying to you have certain ideas, you have something that there's a reason why you started in this, maybe you have some hypothesis, maybe you have something cool and you want to get some traction and you want to find the product market fit. So it will start with your hypothesis of who actually is. Like,
Mhm.
let's say you want to understand the users a little bit better and the context where your product might be used. So you start with your thoughts and trying to find people that actually match that profile and trying to ask, several questions. You can start from, okay, what's because you kind of have this at the beginning, you kind of have like parts or it's very messy. So it's like, okay, I have a product that solves probably this and it's probably for these people. I mean, you never phrase it like this because when you're starting out, you feel like a lot of confidence. So this is my product, will solve this for this.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see it clearly, sometimes you just, well, that's why I said, so my product probably tackles this problem. Oh, this is probably the solution for this problem for this person. So try to understand those parts a little bit better, however you can. And this will go, as I said, in this is where I switch to the other teams. Like, researchers will kill me if I'm talking about this crappy research, maybe, but you need to find people who might be matching the profile of your ideal customer, and then take it from there. The fact that we need to iterate doesn't mean that you can also iterate when you start generating, when you work in generative research. So, okay,
Yeah.
fine, we learn from these 10 people this, maybe we shift something and then we go again. We just build something and then test it. It's like, okay, we go again and then find a little bit more, because, as I said, research will build on top of research. So my advice for people who want to get out of the building is to try to find people similar to the ones that you have in mind, to them, especially your ideal customers. You can find them. You can use tools to recruit them. You can find them in groups. You can have, depending on how much money you have, if you're bootstrapping them, probably you have to go to Reddit or Facebook groups or whatever. If you have a little bit of budget, you can use tools like, I don't know, Askable user interviews or tools that can get you users really quickly. And one important thing is to also read a couple of research books
Okay.
and understand what kind of question you should be asking. So with this, I mean, I've seen many times this, would you buy this product for 10 euros? It's like, is this what you want? Tell me which features would you like?
Yeah.
I've seen this, I don't know how many times already. So that's also important to assess. So that was the logistics part. So now the technique part, you should also learn. I can recommend you, as I said, I quoted him already. Think Like a UX Researcher by Dr. David Travis is a really good book. Just Enough Research by Erica Hall is another great book. Just start with those. You can, I mean, there are plenty. Or just Google some resources, some guides, some templates, and kind of take it from there. But I advise product people to also get into that mindset and trying to understand because it's not so straightforward. You just talk to people and you ask them questions and they will reveal, especially because, I mean, and this opens up another topic. People are not really good at articulating what they need, what they want, and some of the issues they face. So you need to
And
understand
people
it.
lie. And
Yeah,
people lie. That's the
especially,
worst part.
yeah.
And people lie because they will never say that. I think the hardest part in our role, is that we always say, "Oh, you need to find a problem," but people don't have problems because they don't stay with a problem. It's like, it's almost like saying, "Are you going to stay with a pebble in your shoe?" No, you're gonna just take it out, or maybe you're going to continue walking with it, but you're not going to stop walking just because you have a pebble in your shoe. And this is what it's hard for people to understand, is that when you ask this question, people don't think right away if they have a problem, because they don't.
Yeah.
And
in most cases,
it's such a difficult job, to do it properly. So I feel for you, because it's like you decided to go in there, to go in this and explaining that to people.
yeah, I think that's actually a really good take on that. I mean, nowadays, maybe I don't know, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe a little bit in the past, if we go back in time, maybe you would find that situation where they would have a pain point and they just. But it doesn't really extend in time because they find an alternate, even crappy solution to that.
Yeah.
So it's not that they will stay with the pain. So and nowadays, with a competitive market and a lot of people trying to find solutions to problems, this starts to get harder. Even harder to find. It's harder by default to find problems as per se, as you're saying, but now even harder. So probably what you can find there is people who are not happy with the current solution that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This also leads to then you can also compare and you can start, and this also leads to the jobs to be done kind of talk, which is I keep on opening boxes here and there,
Yeah, I see that, like your opening topic. So, but you talk about a lot of you talk a lot about the frameworks that are shared with product, right? It seems that it's I will not say it's hard to see the separation, because, as you said, there is a part of it is really customer discovery. Where do you see the difference? Where do you feel like when we talk about customer discovery, is it covering everything you talk about, or is there some stuff missing?
Depends what you think or what you count as customer discovery. So there are two things here. So if let's say, well, customer discovery is Steve Blank, but now people call it product discovery. So,
Yeah. Okay.
so much love for Steve in this podcast. I hope he listens to it and feels proud.
I'm gonna tag him. I have to tag him.
Tag him.
He will not
definitely.
answer, but that's okay.
Yeah, maybe he does. Who knows? Maybe he comes to the show. Please invite me for that one.
I will open that. I will invite you if he comes to the show. No problem.
So there are different things here. So in terms of, let's say, talking about product discovery, if you take this definition or this kind of mainstream understanding of the product discovery is, especially, that's why I kind of confuse it a little bit with continuous discovery, because what I see out there, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, because now I'm a little bit of an outsider for the product world, if you want, or the product world content. I mean, product people, like product managers and so on, right? What I see is like they what they mean with product discovery is actually talking to customers on a weekly basis on small pools. So that sounds kind of like Teresa Torres to me. That sounds kind of like continuous discovery mostly. And
Yeah,
usually they talk about interviews. So
yeah, they talk about interview, but it's almost like validating the solution. This is what I've seen in certain content. So this is why I'm a bit confused sometimes between customer discovery, which is not necessarily in product. You don't have a product yet, or maybe you have a product, but you validate like more from a research perspective, your strategy or where you're going, and product discovery that sometimes is like, yeah, just validating your solution. This is where I'm in between.
Yeah. In that sense, I just don't differentiate between what they talk about the content of these interviews. It's like maybe they're just trying to understand the problem space, and in a different week they're trying, they're kind of shaping a solution, as you said. But I don't want to get into that, because it's kind of like the way of working, that I kind of see. So that's what I see with product discovery. So that's one thing. I mean, I think in the case of research, we can work like that, but we can also combine different things. So I think the other question was more that's a very good one. So what are the boundaries between product managers and researchers in terms of understanding customers?
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like, why is there a boundary? Why there should be a boundary? I mean, one of the things that I believe is that understanding or like learning should be joint efforts. And that's also the way I think and I feel about research, and I try to advocate for that. I think it's something that we should all do. I mean, then we researchers, we can like spearhead this and be the ones with the technical knowledge and help like the rest of the organization understand sometimes that tackling projects on like taking our project in our own hands and leading this, but I think this should be a joint effort. This is something that it should be also part of the culture. That's also why sometimes I build about building infrastructure means also building the culture. Okay, we want to learn, we want to understand. So I think there shouldn't be. I mean, we can discuss what the boundaries of who should hold the standard to what's good research, what's bad research. I think that in our case should be the role of research.
Yeah.
But then after that, I see. I mean, everybody in the team can to a certain extent contribute to that. So I don't know how you see that from the product side.
No, it's because we're going to talk about Brand again. Is about why company fails. Is also about the overlapping of responsibility. And sometimes I see research. For example, there is also UX that is saying there is UX research, and so it starts to become unclear. Who does what, because as you said, now there is product discovery. So now we have like customer discovery, product discovery, UX research. You have also marketing research. So it's all taking a small step into that. And in my head is like, as you said, if there was someone that was responsible for the standard, I imagine that it will be the research, because they are the specialists in that. Like working on a survey, for example, we talk about quantitative, but working on a survey, it's really complex. As you said, writing the right question, not even a survey necessarily quantitative, but qualitative also, asking the question the right way, it's a job in itself. And you understand that when you do it yourself. You understand that when you do it yourself and you make a mistake, at the end, where you ask a question and then you look at the type of answers you got and you're like, okay, this is useless for me now because I can't do anything for that. So I just burn, a set of cash for a question that didn't bring me anything, right? And it happened to me. I fell into that. And so I was like, yeah, this is a real job. But then unfortunately, explaining that to a company is really hard because they don't necessarily see it,
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, that's why, and we go back to research hubs, which is the beginning of the talk.
Perfect.
This is the orchestrator of all this. There are many trends happening in research, and actually this was part of one of my last conference talk. I talk about different things happening in research. We have researchers in companies. You have now there's a defined role. Sometimes you have teams, research teams full maybe of 10, 15 people, 5 people, whatever you name it. Then you also have something called research democratization, which you have people from designers testing some stuff or conducting some research. You have product managers, and in the case of product managers, you add this extra layer of product discovery, if you want. So there are many things going on. There are many things happening. There are many people talking to customers. So this is where research hubs also comes in to orchestrate all this, to hold the standard. I said the researcher, but also actually, if you have the possibility, what I mean is research hubs. So my take, and many people might disagree with me, especially purists will be like, okay, no, only researchers should be talking to customers. I don't believe in that. I mean, I think the collection of the data can be done by different people. It's good that they're also involved. What we need to do from the research and research hubs side is to orchestrate all that, hold the standards, see this is useful, this is not, and then try to distill this into something useful. And that's where our knowledge from both sides, research and research hubs, comes into play. The research hub side will be orchestrating all this. Okay, these people need to talk to customers. We find them the right customers, because that's also important. Talk to the wrong people. If you talk to my aunt about Netflix, you won't probably get any useful answers, for example. So that then being compliant with GDPR, especially in Europe, all these things, then what they do with the output they get, how do you store it, how do you connect it, how do you triangulate, this is coming from the upside. But then helping distill all this then into actionable solutions is also part of the research role. There's another creator who was Dr. Ari Zelmanov. I can also recommend his stuff. He posts a lot of stuff. He works at Twilio, and he has this figure of the counselor, of the of the researcher being this person making sense of all this and then giving like counsel to maybe product, to management, whatever, depending on the case. So I think those are two layers to that. So the orchestration and then the distillation of knowledge. That's where I see our role in the long run.
So in your role, like you, I wanna approach that now, the part of leadership in there, because you're in a leading position, as you said, you're an orchestrator, so you have to have these leadership skills, right? So what kind of skills you see that are needed to be successful in that job?
That's a good question. I haven't thought of that like that. So leadership from that, but actually it's actually true. Yeah, you need to lead, but you I think your north star there is actually knowledge and understanding. So we need to be better at understanding, and you need to lead everybody, and you can show them the way. You can show them this is how it should be done, and also
Mhm.
you can also show, okay, this is what we all found out, and this, like, I help you kind of make sense to all the information we have, and this is what we get, and this is where we should go, this is what we should build, this is the direction we need to follow. So two things there. So I think a lot of communication skills are needed. Maybe not a popular one, but also some politics skills you also need.
Yeah, especially in big organization, it's possible
Yeah,
that you will need that.
yeah, especially if you need to adjust cadences, if you want to connect different teams, why should other
Mhm.
teams be part of your overarching process of crossing information and insights? So politics a little bit too, but politics maybe like falls under communication.
Yeah, could be. It's yeah, yeah. I'll say that communication goes also with what we talked earlier, which is just explaining to people what you do. If you don't have the communication skills, it's not even handling agendas or anything. Where politics sometimes it's a bit like power and agendas and motivation and behind the scene things that are happening. So you have to handle
Yeah. Okay. Uh,
that.
and I think you also need certain vision if you want. You need to have that. You need to be a little bit visionary. But that also applies to overall to research hubs, especially because research hubs sometimes it's not straightforward. It's not that. It's like a plant. You plant the seed, then you water it, and the plant, it doesn't grow overnight. It's not that you plant tomatoes and then next week you have the fruit. It's like it will take you some time. So this vision and this is kind of betting on the long term and also bringing people along the way with your vision, because they need to chip in, especially in a process like this where you need to bring a lot of teams apart from the politics side. You need to bring a lot of people along and say, okay, we need to build this to get a better understanding, but it will take a long time to adjust. So you need to kind of have this vision and keep everybody steer the ship in that way, because if you don't, some people, if you don't show results in 1 quarter, maybe okay, next one in 2 quarters, maybe okay, I'm out of this.
Yeah.
So I think this is also something needed, having this vision, and also with the communication skill, bring people on board and communicate that.
And do you remember for you what was the I would say maybe a pivotal moment that brought you to this career where you say, okay, this is really how I want to develop myself, and this is really what I want to do. Like teach people about research hub, like help companies to be better at that, and to have this support, this foundation to be better.
I think at some point in time, as I said, I've been the first researcher or one of the early hires. So this is me. I mean, I don't have experience working in these large companies where they have 20, 30 researchers, and then I join as a 32nd researcher. I haven't had the chance to work. I mean, maybe I could learn a lot from that. I'm not saying, it's not that I'm saying this negatively. I mean, I just didn't have that kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have kind of like this was kind of my jam. So at some point I realized that my role, and I'm going to use a football analogy,
Good.
soccer, if we have people in the US.
Soccer, yeah.
We're going to change that. Yeah, that wording is going to change at some point.
It's okay. Messi is there now, so
Yeah,
it's gonna change that.
Messi is going to change that word. So I I first thought of a researcher as kind of a forward, someone who score goals. Someone who said, okay, I bring the knowledge and I give you, I give you what you need to do, or what you need to, I give you the information you need to make that decision.
Yeah.
I kind of like, that was kind of so I deliver, but then and the research upside to that came, okay, in order for me to score the goal, I kind of need to build all these things, I need to build a participant management system, I need to systemize this, I need to build this, I need to build that. That's why I didn't know it was research ops at the time. And at a point, I kind of understood, especially when I joined companies at the beginning, that I shouldn't be the oracle, or I shouldn't be kind of the goal scorer. I should be kind of the playmaker. Especially because the situation kind of forces you to do that. When you are the first researcher and you have 6 product managers and 5 designers, you cannot score all goals. You're not that. You need to, okay, give me the ball and I give it to you and I give it to him and I give it to her. So that was, I think, a couple of years in, I kind of realized that I kind of make that shift. Okay, I should be empowering others. And that connected, the empowering others also connected with the infrastructure side. So kind of everything came together somehow. I'm trying, of course, now it sounds very clear because I kind of like put it together now, but actually it was something that it was like a longer process of me trying to.
But it's really interesting because I was listening to you and I was like thinking about my career also. It's quite interesting because I feel that the more you go towards this leadership position, the more you understand that your role is not necessarily, you pay less attention to doing the thing. You understand how to do it and you can do it and you're capable to do it at any moment. But you understand that your role is more to empowering others. And you understand that you have to be in this place where it's a bit like almost back from the action. And it's like, I'm going to put everything in place so people can, as you say, score the goal. Without, maybe with my help or without my help. It's not what it matters at the end.
Yeah. And to build on that, sometimes their managers, and that's also why I talk about it in a different way, because my thoughts on management are a little bit different. But sometimes managers do work a lot on ops. When you have a team and you're maybe not doing hands-on work anymore, but you need to work then on the whole infrastructure on the overall team, and you need to then help them perform their work better. Sometimes some of the ops work is undertaken by them. But then in many cases, reality is that when you're in a manager position, especially if you are in middle management, you are under fire. And in many contexts, when you're in middle management, what you do basically, you're a Zoom animal. You're the whole day from one Zoom call to the other, and then fine, I have 3 hours to work on research up for my team. Fine, maybe I do one thing, and so that's also why I try to separate that. But in some contexts, it's true that it especially if it's not very messy, that some tasks can be undertaken by management. But I try to make the difference because people say, okay, ops, but okay, that's what a manager can do. But then they don't do it. But
I think it's a good segue to the question that I ask at the end of the podcast. I ask always the person before, what is the question that you have for the next person? And Jenny, last time asked me, and it's a good question that I want to ask you now, because it links a lot to this playmaker analogy that you were saying. She said, how do you build a healthy culture for your organization? So it's quite interesting because since you're talking about putting those things in place and you're in research up, how do you ensure that it's healthy and it's a right culture for that?
Well, that's also very sorry. Yeah, something that I have to say is that I'm a researcher. So every researcher mostly will answer, it depends. So that's kind of the go-to answer for any researcher.
I feel it's like every product manager also, when you see the answer on Reddit, is like, yeah, it depends on
yeah, it depends. So in this case, it depends on what do you hold for healthy. What are your let's see it through the lens of research, or I think in what I would call, or what I would consider a healthy culture in terms of research is culture is hungry
Mm-hmm.
to a reasonable level. Also, over hungry is also bad. Like not hungry and over hungry are also not good, but the right amount of but interest in learning more, being humble to wanting to learn more. I think being humble in research is also one of the things that is also key. I haven't mentioned it in the skills I need to have, but because that's more like I thought of it more from the upside, but also being humble is okay, I need to learn, I need to understand something that I don't know, or
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the answers. So having that, so being interested, being hungry for knowledge, being humble, and seeing this learning as a help rather than a blocker, you know.
Okay.
Conducting research in any way you have, I mean, no, not being picky here, will help you make better decisions and will probably steer the company into a healthy direction and probably and hopefully a user-centric direction. Because this is what happens here. This is because you're building for people. That's also
Mm-hmm.
important. So you need to understand people. You need to understand the context. You need to understand many things. But if you're hungry and you're genuinely interested, then everything comes more naturally. Also, the building of everything.
And
So, yeah.
and how do you keep the balance between, serving, I will say, and still being assertive, and leading in a certain direction?
In what sense do you mean?
In the sense that sometimes, we get a bit lost in trying to please sometimes people. We are trying, sometimes when people say healthy culture, or they say in their head healthy culture is like everybody is happy. But the thing is that the decision that has to be made is not necessarily the one that everybody agrees with, right? You said yourself, when people do some research, sometimes they just want to confirm what they think. So how do you balance that at the same time? Where it's like, I understand that, but we need to change that. How do we balance to still making them happy and engaged, I will say, but at the same time steering in the right direction?
I think your question goes into also we need to create value not just for the user but also for the business. Is that where you're going with that? So okay, we understand users in a way, but also great. We could build this, but this also doesn't match our strategy, or we
Yeah.
can't really serve this because infrastructure limitations, or we cannot build a specific product for this specific country. So all the things, and that's why you need to be pragmatic. So you say, okay, fine. I understand this is a situation, but these are the limitations. So I think in that Venn diagram of creating value for the user and the business is where you can find the sweet spot. If it's something that falls just on the user side, maybe you can tackle later. Maybe you can expand and you can grow the Venn diagram in a way if you can find a way for the business to actually profit from that. But if not, it is what it is. So this is not, maybe some people who work at NGOs or something maybe will think differently than me, but most of us working at companies and so on, we also need to understand that we need to create value for different parties. And I'm not talking about shareholders or something like that. I'm not going that deep, but also it's like sometimes we find a lot of problems that we don't need to tackle and we need to ignore on purpose. Okay, fine. They struggle with this. Nothing we can do. Even if we find out, nothing we can do now because it's not a line of business. It's not a
Yeah.
purpose. It's not something. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, this is what I mean. It's the same idea that I have in mind. So this is why I wanted your opinion on it. So that's great. You're reaching the end. So I just want to ask you the last three questions. I mean, first, what will be the question for the next person that you will have? So the next person is Anna. I can because she's going next week. She was supposed to come last week.
Mhm. So the question for the next guest would be: should I make it blindly or should I? Anna is what's her background?
She's in the recruitment side, HR side. She
HR
helps
side.
talent enablement most of the time.
Okay,
But you can make it
that's
open.
interesting. That's interesting. So, what things, what kind of knowledge are you interested in from an HR perspective? What kind of things would you like to learn? Or how involved would you like to be involved in learning about what we do and so on from an HR perspective? How does that influence? And what I mean with this, maybe you can rephrase it because I'm now making a super long question, but what I mean with this is like sometimes it's like, okay, HR it's part of the organization. So also, it's like, okay, what are they interested in? How do they perceive what we do from their perspective? And how can they also contribute to the learning? What things, maybe candidate feedback could also be helping the image people have of our product. So how something in that
That's a
direction.
really interesting question. That's a really interesting question. I'm not gonna tell her beforehand, so at least she's gonna have it. So, my last free question that I ask all the time. So, what do you hope will be your legacy or lasting impact in this field?
Okay, that's a big one. That's a big one that I cannot answer looking forward. So because I don't know what the future will bring. So what I can say or what I would like is that I would like more. I like to help more companies understand the importance of learning and that how should we all be involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I wanna push for helping build companies that learn and understand. So changing that, like extending this mindset throughout the company. I think that's something that I want to push for. And I don't want to label it with research hubs or research or anything. I'm trying to be very, very broad with my wording on purpose. So I would like to go in that way.
Okay. My second question, except Steve Blank, any leader that you follow, and also, do you know? Because I believe in entertainment, sometime to learn. If you know a movie or a TV show that you can learn about research, but not only research, if you know what I mean, that people should watch, I will say.
The second one is really tough because the kind of movie I don't think I've ever learned about research. The kind of movies I want, I watch. Okay, let me think. Okay, in the first one, leaders that I follow. Well, I try to follow a lot of people across the board. So, for example, now I'm reading a lot of Melissa Perry from product operations because I'm interested in my cousins from product operations from a research officer perspective. I've been following her work lately. Then of course you have kind of like research big hits like Erica Hall. We also have of course Kate Townsend from Research Ops, also a leader that I follow. I think she said she's launching a book really soon called,
cool.
Yeah, I think it's Research at Scales or something like that. Also, she's a founder of the Research Ops community.
Now
she has her community. I think it's called Cha Cha Club or something like that. Where like her stuff is great. Holly Cole, also from the Research Ops community, or Jake Barhart, also from the Research Ops community. And yeah, that's pretty much the ones I can think of, like top of my. And I also mentioned some. I mean, I talked about Bezos, Sigiani already. I also like a lot of Janelle Ward's content. She has a really interesting blog.
Yes. Yes, I connected with her also. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So
yeah. And so for, let's say, emerging leaders, in digital product realm, research realm, what's one piece of advice you wish you'd receive earlier in your career?
A piece of advice. I'm stuck. You got me with the film one. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just still thinking of the film one. Okay, piece of advice that I wish I had received early. It takes time. That's also something that I learned kind of the hard way. It takes time to build something. It takes time to. Now I'm talking like very loosely about, okay, research ops takes time. Results will take time. It's not something that grows and happens overnight. But it was not like always like that. So I was like really anxious. Okay, we build this. Okay, now we present it and we launch it and yeah. That's also something that I wish I knew. Probably takes time. It's a good one.
That's good. That's a good one.
Movies, I like this one, but this is maybe from. This is not research related at all, but I like Moneyball.
Oh yeah, I was about
That's a
to
classic.
say that to you, and I was like, for me, it's like a movie that I always say to people to watch if they want to understand the role of product manager. They can follow, what's his name, Brad Pitt. That is for me like kind of a role of product manager or leader. But he's decided to change things using data, and it takes someone that is a specialist in research and data analysis, and it's like we're gonna change it like that. It's an amazing movie for that. Yeah,
He's missing the qualitative side, and we go back to the point. But
yeah,
yeah,
the movie,
but, yeah,
we can't.
yeah. But great work. Yeah, great work. Yeah.
So where can we follow you? Where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn as of now, under my name. I also have my blog / newsletter / it's not Substack. That's why I kind of avoid using that word, but it's similar. I'm posting articles every now and then. I will be launching a podcast probably early next year.
What is the podcast about?
Well, the whole concept, whether the blog or the podcast, is called From Finders to Builders.
Okay.
So it's basically about this particular position when you a finder, meaning a researcher, someone doing research, just remember the forward, the striker scoring goals.
Yeah.
And then changing to a playmaker. So becoming a builder, building infrastructure, building this culture for learning and for understanding and all these things, and how you can do that, and kind of share my experience, share some tips. I probably have some guests, so it's launching in hopefully January.
That's great.
And if you follow the 180.cc, you can find everything there, or on my LinkedIn you will have all the information there.
Perfect. That's great. Look, I will. You will give me some links, so I'll put them in the recording. So thank you so much for being there with me today. I truly enjoyed the conversation. The recording will be available soon on YouTube. Later date will be on the podcast, apps that So yeah, because someone asked me, they were late, but they found the topic really interesting, and I hope it's recorded. Yes, it's recorded, and yeah, I will just clean it up a little bit, and soon to go like some extracts and everything.
Great, awesome.
Thanks a lot, Julian.
Thanks a lot for having me.
See you to the next one.
See you.